to dig up the main ideas. I'm Sparky, and we're about to fetch a quick summary of mastering the art of tour guiding in Belize, from ethics to interpretation.
Belize is a land defined by its staggering diversity, and as you begin your journey toward mastering the art of tour guiding, understanding this variety is your first step toward success. The tourism product here is incredibly broad, encompassing everything from world-class scuba diving and fly fishing to deep jungle caving and ancient Maya archaeology. Because the country offers such a wide range of settings and environments, the people who visit are just as varied. You will encounter church groups, educational researchers, high-stakes birders, and families simply looking for recreation. These are what we call common binding groups, people united by a shared specialized interest. A truly effective guide learns to recognize these groups quickly and takes advantage of their own specialized knowledge to build deep, meaningful relationships with their guests. Whether you decide to be a generalist who knows a bit of everything or a specialist in a niche market, your ability to communicate effectively with these diverse visitors is what will set you apart in the industry. Becoming a successful guide requires a mindset of constant curiosity and keen observation.
It is not enough to simply memorize facts from a textbook or go through the motions to pass a course. You must train your brain to suck in information from the world around you like a sponge. Think about the small details that most people overlook. For instance, consider the humble leafcutter ant. While an average person might just see a line of bugs, a great guide sees a complex, thriving society. They can explain how these ants use pheromones to create invisible roads, or how they carry leaves deep into their tunnels to create the mulch that grows the fungi they feed on.
This level of observation transforms a simple walk through the bush into an immersive, multi-sensory experience. The same curiosity applies to the incredible wildlife you will encounter. You should be able to distinguish between the three main types of toucans found in our forests: the large, iconic keel-billed toucan, the mid-sized collared aracari, and the small, vibrant emerald toucanet. When you can speak with authority on these subjects, you amaze your guests and elevate the entire experience.
This curiosity is what allows you to stimulate the human senses, making the stories of the land come alive for those following you. Furthermore, this path demands a high level of personal leadership and a positive outlook. In Belize, a tour guide is far more than just a source of information. You are an ambassador for your nation and a protector of its natural treasures. You have the opportunity to make a lasting impact on how the world perceives Belize. Tourism is ultimately the business of satisfying human needs and creating emotional connections. When you are knowledgeable, positive, and genuinely engaged with your environment, your guests will feel that energy. It creates a sense of professional pride that goes beyond just earning a certificate. By constantly observing, learning, and sharing the unique stories of the Belizean landscape, you transition from being a student to a leader who represents the very best of what this country has to offer. Success as a guide starts with that internal spark, the desire to know more today than you did yesterday, and the willingness to share that wonder with every person you lead. Belize is a landscape of immense diversity, and this richness is mirrored in the types of people who visit our shores. To be a truly successful guide, you must look beyond the surface of a crowd and identify what are known as common binding groups. These are visitors who are not just traveling together by chance, but are united by a shared purpose, a professional background, or a deep-seated passion. They might be members of the same church congregation, a specialized scientific society, a corporate team, or a group of hobbyists such as birders or fly fishermen. When you quickly become aware of these commonalities, you unlock a powerful tool for building an immediate and professional relationship with your guests. Consider the specialized knowledge required to lead a group of expert birders. If you can accurately distinguish between the three primary toucan species found in our rainforests, the small green emerald toucanet, the mid-sized collared aracari, and the large iconic keel-billed toucan, you are doing more than just identifying wildlife. You are communicating on a level that your guests respect. A knowledgeable guide takes full advantage of this by speaking the specific language of the niche market they are serving. Whether you are engaging with archaeologists about the nuances of ancient Maya construction or talking to researchers about the delicate balance of our reef systems, your ability to provide deep, specific information is what transforms a standard sightseeing trip into a specialized professional experience. Early in your career, you may feel like a generalist, knowing a little bit about everything. However, as you gain experience, you will notice that Belize attracts very specific types of travelers, from nature seekers and eco-tourists to academic groups. To serve these niche markets effectively, you must be a constant observer. The lecture suggests that your brain should act like a sponge, sucking in information about the world around you so that you can later share it with those who value it most. Think about the intricate life of the leafcutter ant. To a casual tourist, they might just be a line of insects. But to a guide who has studied their behavior, they represent a complex biological system involving pheromone trails and fungal farming. When you meet a group and they realize you truly understand the subject they are passionate about, a unique bond is formed. This is the art of tapping into diversity. By tailoring your presentation to the common binding interests of your audience, you move beyond reciting facts and start building a meaningful connection. This specialized approach not only satisfies the visitor's expectations, but also positions you as a leader and an expert in your field. Whether your guests are here for recreational fun or professional research, utilizing your specialized knowledge ensures that they leave Belize feeling that their specific interests were understood and valued. When we look at the landscape of Belizean tourism, it is essentially divided into two massive pillars: cruise ship tourism and overnight stay tourism. Understanding the differences between these two is vital for any guide, because while they both revolve around showing off the beauty of the country, their economic impacts and logistical demands are worlds apart. Let's start with the sheer scale of cruise tourism. These ships are often described as floating cities, sometimes carrying 5,000 or 6,000 passengers at once. In terms of raw numbers, cruise tourism outshines overnight visits. However, it is a high-volume, short-duration game. These visitors are only in the country for a few hours. They arrive in the morning, head out on a tightly scheduled excursion, and must be back at the tourism village well before the ship pulls anchor. This creates a very specific logistical challenge for a guide. In the cruise industry, you are often dealing with groups of 40, 50, or even 60 people at a time. Managing a crowd of that size requires a guide to be an assertive and visible leader. Think of it like the difference between a random flock of pigeons in a park and the orderly flight formation of pelicans. To be successful, a guide has to use techniques like natural stages, standing on a rock or an incline, so everyone can see and hear the instructions. Time management is the most critical factor here. The ship waits for no one, except perhaps the doctor or the captain. So if a guide is even slightly late returning a group, it creates a massive problem. On the other side of the spectrum, we have overnight stay tourism. While the number of visitors is lower than the cruise sector, these travelers bring significantly more money into the Belizean economy. These are the guests who fill the hotels in places like the Cayo District or the Mountain Pine Ridge for 3, 5, or even 11 nights. Because they are staying longer, their economic footprint is deeper. They eat multiple meals in local restaurants, hire different transportation services, and often book several different tours during their stay. For a guide, overnight tourism is much more intimate, but requires a different kind of professional stamina. You might be with the same group for several days, sharing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. While this allows for a wonderful relationship to form, it also requires you to draw a firm professional line. It is easy to start feeling like one of the tourists yourself when you are spending that much time together, but you must always remember that you are the guide. You have to balance being a friend and an ambassador with being a professional who needs to return to their own family at the end of the day. When you are guiding in a country as diverse as Belize, you have to remember that your audience is truly global. On any given day, you might be leading visitors from Japan, Italy, Germany, the United States, or the Middle East. Each of these groups brings their own cultural etiquette, expectations, and language abilities. To be a successful guide, you must become a student of these differences, practicing cultural sensitivity and adapting your communication style to ensure every guest feels included and informed. One of the most important strategies for managing international visitors is the strict avoidance of colloquialisms. When you are deep in the jungle or standing atop a Maya temple, it is easy to slip into local slang or Creole expressions because they feel natural to us. However, for an international visitor, these terms can be confusing and alienating. For example, if you see a bird that locals call a pitch, you should instead identify it by its proper name, the great kiskadee. Similarly, don't refer to a bird as a tam-tim. Use the recognized common or scientific name. By avoiding local nicknames and slang, you provide a professional experience that is accessible to everyone, regardless of their familiarity with Belizean culture. Communication must be slow, clear, and deliberate. You should never assume that a detail is too small or too common to be worth pointing out. What might seem like an ordinary ant trail or a common leaf to you could be a fascinating discovery for someone who has lived their whole life in a major city. Take the time to explain the hidden logic of a natural world, but do so in a way that respects the language levels of your guests. If there is a significant language barrier, utilizing translation apps or working with a dedicated translator can bridge the gap and prevent misunderstandings. Beyond language, you must be cognizant of the differing values and traditions of minority groups, such as Native Americans, Afro-Americans, Hispanics, Chinese, and Japanese visitors. A great guide takes the responsibility to learn how these traditions are represented in historical sites and natural areas. You should also recognize the different ways people travel. For instance, European visitors often enjoy longer vacations and may be more mindful of their daily budget, whereas North American visitors might be on a shorter, high-intensity trip and tend to be more liberal with their spending. Understanding these patterns helps you manage expectations and provide better service without falling into the trap of judging a guest by their spending habits or their tips. Ultimately, your goal is to be a professional ambassador who treats every visitor with respect, providing a high-quality experience that transcends cultural boundaries. As a guide in Belize, you will find that a significant portion of your visitors are older adults, often in their 50s, 60s, and beyond. This demographic brings a wealth of curiosity and experience, but they also require a guide who is deeply attentive to varying physical abilities and mobility needs. Understanding these nuances is a core part of being a professional. It starts with the realization that not every guest moves at the same pace or possesses the same level of physical stamina. You must be prepared to adjust your rhythm and offer extra care without making anyone feel like a burden. One of the most important skills you can develop is the ability to be honest about the terrain. If you are approaching a steep archaeological structure or a rugged jungle trail, you must provide a clear and realistic assessment of the degree of difficulty. It is your responsibility to inform the guest if a specific path might be too strenuous. If a guest has limited mobility in their legs or hands, do not hesitate to suggest a safer alternative, such as resting under a shaded canopy built by the archaeological department while the rest of the group climbs. This is not about exclusion, but about ensuring the safety and comfort of every individual under your care. Beyond physical mobility, you must also be sensitive to sensory needs. Some guests may have difficulty hearing or seeing as clearly as others. To manage this effectively, always speak slowly, clearly, and distinctly. Make sure you are facing the group when you speak, so they can see your expressions and hear your voice without it being carried away by the wind. Patience is your greatest tool here. Never rush a guest who needs more time to navigate a step or process a piece of information. There is also a social element to guiding diverse groups. It is a common mistake for guides to gravitate toward the most energetic or charismatic people in a group, but true leadership means distributing your attention equally. You must be careful not to ignore the older traveler or the person with a disability in favor of a younger, more active guest.
Everyone deserves to feel that their experience is unique and personal.
If someone in your group needs assistance, offer it with respect and dignity, ensuring they feel supported rather than singled out. Finally, preparing for the well-being of your guests means understanding their medical needs. Before any tour begins, it is essential to conduct a brief health check. Ask your guests about allergies, chronic conditions like diabetes, or any medications they might need to carry. For example, if you are taking a diabetic guest on a long hike, you should always carry extra sweets or snacks to help regulate their sugar levels if they become fatigued. By being proactive and observant, you create an environment where every visitor, regardless of their age or physical ability, feels safe, valued, and ready to experience the beauty of Belize.
When we talk about the art of guiding, one of the most fundamental shifts in mindset happens when we recognize who exactly is standing in front of us. In a traditional classroom or a professional seminar, you are dealing with what we call a captive audience. These individuals are there because they have a specific, tangible goal in mind, usually tied to a certification, a diploma, or a job requirement. They are motivated by the need to pass a test or qualify for a license, which means they are essentially forced to listen.
Even if the lecture is dry or the presenter is uninspired, the captive audience stays because the reward at the end, whether that is the grade or the credential, is what matters most to them. Now, compare that to the world of tourism. As a tour guide, your guests are a non-captive audience, and this changes everything about how you must present information. A tourist is not looking for a degree, they are looking for an experience. They have invested their time and their hard-earned money to be entertained, to be inspired, and to connect with a new place.
Their participation is entirely voluntary. This means that at any moment, if they feel bored, overwhelmed by too many technical facts, or ignored, they can mentally or physically check out. The lecturer's authority in a classroom does not exist here. Instead, the guide must earn the audience's attention every step of the way. Think of your guests as if they are holding a television remote control. If the story you are telling is not engaging, they will simply change the channel in their minds. To prevent this, a successful guide has to move beyond the simple recitation of facts.
While a classroom focuses on instruction and the spoken word from a text, a tour focuses on the management of a situation. You are not just giving a speech, you are stimulating the human senses. You are taking a complex archaeological history or a biological process and turning it into something that touches their emotions and fulfills their personal interests. Understanding this difference is why we emphasize attitude and passion. A guide who is truly delighted to be there, who shows a real passion for conservation and culture, will always outperform a guide who treats the tour like a school lesson.
You have to be a leader who facilitates enjoyment. Your job is to make the visitor feel that their experience is unique and personal, rather than just another name on a roster. By recognizing that your audience is there for pleasure rather than a paycheck or a diploma, you can adapt your techniques to ensure they stay tuned in, satisfied, and truly moved by the story of Belize.
Leading a large group, such as a cruise ship excursion with 30 or more people, requires a shift from being a simple narrator to being an assertive leader. In these scenarios, you want your group to resemble the orderly, synchronized flight formation of pelicans rather than the chaotic, random flocking of pigeons in a park. This level of organization starts the moment you introduce yourself. You must establish authority immediately, using tools like a whistle or clear verbal commands to signal when it is time to move, stop, or gather. Being a visible leader means you are not just part of the crowd. You are the one navigating and controlling the energy of the entire unit. One of the most practical skills for a leader is the use of natural stages. Because you need to be visible to every person in a large group, you should always look for an elevation that puts you above the crowd. This might mean standing on a large rock, stepping onto a sturdy incline of an ancient archaeological structure, or even stepping off a trail onto a slight rise. In certain environments, like a river crossing, stepping into the stream while the group remains on the bank creates a natural focal point that draws eyes towards you. When you reach a designated stop, it is vital that you never begin your interpretation immediately. Instead, wait for the very last person to arrive so that no one misses the core of your message. Once the group is gathered, arrange them into a semicircle. This shape ensures that everyone has a clear line of sight to both you and the landmark you are describing.
Effective communication in these settings is about more than just volume. It is about clarity and distinction. You must speak distinctly, ensuring your words do not run together or get lost in the wind. A good guide practices articulation, almost like a performer practicing tongue twisters, to ensure every visitor can follow the narrative without strain. Furthermore, you should always facilitate the view for your guests by using relative directions. Never say "to my left" or "to my right," as that forces the guest to mentally flip the orientation.
To your left or to your right. This simple adjustment makes the information immediate and easy to process for a crowd. By maintaining a firm command of the site and projecting an enthusiastic presence from your natural stage, you transform a potentially chaotic crowd into a cohesive unit, ensuring the experience is professional, safe, and engaging for everyone. Professional ethics serve as the heartbeat of a successful tour guiding career. In Belize, where the tourism industry is tight-knit and reputation is everything, your character is your most valuable asset. Ethics are not just a list of rules to follow to avoid getting in trouble. They are the foundation upon which you build trust with your guests and your community. One of the most critical aspects of this is maintaining clear professional boundaries. As a guide, you will often find yourself spending long hours with visitors, sharing meals from breakfast to dinner.
While it is wonderful to be friendly and hospitable, you must always draw a firm line between being a guide and being a guest. The core of professional service is providing attention that is educational and helpful, never emotional, romantic, or sensual. Blurring these lines is one of the most dangerous mistakes a guide can make. It can lead to misunderstandings, false accusations, and legal complications that can dismantle a hard-earned career in an instant. You must respect the individual space of every visitor and ensure that your behavior is beyond reproach.
This also means avoiding favoritism. It can be tempting to focus your attention on the most outgoing or attractive person in a group, but an ethical guide ensures that every participant feels equally valued and respected. Honesty in business practices is another pillar of the profession. This is particularly relevant when it comes to commissions and recommendations. It is common for shops or vendors to offer kickbacks to guides who bring in large groups. However, your integrity is compromised the moment you lead a group to a specific location solely for your own financial gain.
If you recommend a shop, a restaurant, or an additional service, it should be because you genuinely believe in the quality of the product and the value it adds to the guest's experience. Transparency with your guests and honest dealings with local businesses ensure that everyone benefits and that the tourism product remains high quality. Furthermore, a guide must never engage in or facilitate illegal activities. You may be approached by visitors looking for drugs or other illicit services, but as an ambassador for Belize, your answer must always be a firm no. Getting involved in drug sales, consumption, or prostitution is not only a violation of the law, but a betrayal of the trust placed in you by the industry. Your role is to protect your guests and your country's image, not to lead them into the underworld. Finally, consider the ethics of gratuities. Tips should be a natural byproduct of excellent service, not something coerced through deceptive stories or pressure tactics. Avoid the temptation to perform your tour with a dollar sign in your mind. Instead, focus on delivering the full itinerary as promised, providing fresh and accurate information, and ensuring the safety and well-being of your group.
When you treat people with genuine respect and conduct your business with transparency, you create lasting, positive memories that reflect well on you and the entire nation of Belize.
A guide is more than a storyteller or a teacher. You are the primary guardian of your guests' physical well-being. This responsibility begins long before the first step of a tour is taken, starting with a meticulous approach to equipment. Whether you are leading a group through the depths of a cave or into the blue waters of the reef, your gear must be in peak condition. For activities like snorkeling or scuba diving, a simple mask check can prevent a guest from panicking underwater. The lecture highlights a harrowing personal experience of nearly drowning at 60 feet because of a mask issue. This serves as a vital reminder that carelessness can be fatal. For diving, you must verify the air levels in every tank and ensure fins and boots are not torn. When caving, your preparation shifts to light and impact protection. You must ensure everyone has a proper climbing helmet and a reliable light source with extra batteries. Imagine the terror of a group losing their only light source in the middle of a cave system because the guide failed to charge the equipment. These are the preventable crises that separate a professional from an amateur.
Beyond specialized gear, safety extends to the vehicles used for transport. A guide or driver must check the oil, transmission fluid, and fuel levels to ensure the group is not stranded in a remote area like Caracol or the Mountain Pine Ridge. You must also confirm that essential emergency tools, such as a jack, a spare tire, and a working fire extinguisher are on board. These logistical details are the foundation of a safe excursion. Equally important is the medical awareness of your group. One of the first steps in any tour briefing should be a professional inquiry into the health needs of your guests. You must ask about allergies, chronic conditions, and necessary medications. For instance, being aware that a guest is diabetic is crucial. In the Belizean feat, a diabetic guest's sugar levels can drop dangerously low. A prepared guide always carries sweets or a source of sugar to manage such an emergency. While guides should generally avoid administering internal medications they aren't certified to give, having topical treatments and a well-stocked first aid kit is essential. You must also account for the environment, providing plenty of water to combat the high humidity and temperatures that can reach the 90s. Ultimately, your maturity and ability to stay calm under pressure are your greatest tools. By conducting thorough safety checks and understanding the medical backgrounds of your participants, you create a secure environment where your guests can focus on the beauty of Belize without fear. Interpretation is the heart and soul of tour guiding, transforming a simple walk through a site into a profound, life-changing experience. As we have seen throughout these materials, the role of a guide is not merely to act as a walking encyclopedia of dates and figures. Instead, it is to act as an interpreter, someone who reveals the deeper meanings and relationships hidden behind the physical objects and landscapes. This concept was famously defined by the psychologist and author Freeman Tilden as an educational activity that aims to reveal meanings through the use of original objects, first-hand experience, and illustrative media, rather than simply communicating factual information. Think about the difference between a lecture and a story. If you stand before a group at an archaeological site and recite that a specific temple was built in a certain year and cost a specific amount of money to excavate, you are providing facts to a non-captive audience who might quickly lose interest. However, if you use the power of storytelling, you invite the visitor into a different world. You might start by saying, "Once upon a time, this land was a dense jungle where people walked with feathers in their hair and stone axes in their hands." By painting this picture, you allow the guests to visualize the elite rulers and the hard-working peasants who lived there. When you describe the tension of a drought, the fear of the gods being angry, and the eventual collapse of a civilization because the rain stopped falling, you are not just teaching history, you are creating an emotional connection to the human struggle. Effective interpretation uses various tools to engage the senses and the imagination. This might include using props, singing songs, or asking provocative questions that make the visitor think. The goal is to stimulate the human senses so deeply that when the guests leave, they carry the experience home with them. A successful guide uses interpretation to inspire stewardship, perhaps motivating a visitor to join a conservation group or an archaeological society, because they now feel a personal stake in the preservation of the world's heritage. To master this, you must learn to be holistic. You should understand the scientific facts, such as the role of chlorophyll in making leaves green, but you should choose to speak in a language of beauty and wonder. You want your guests to see the Maya ruins not just as piles of stone, but as a stage where sacrifices were made and lives were lived. By revealing these meanings, you bridge the gap between the past and the present. Remember, a satisfied tourist may not always return, but one who has been truly moved by an interpretive story will tell everyone they know about the incredible journey they had in Belize. Your job is to make the information stick by making it matter. When you interpret rather than just inform, you turn a tour into a lasting memory.